Glorious. Okay. You know, when you have multiple screens and you're always like, which one is the one that's going to pop up? And of course it was the wrong one today because I'm sharing this. Excuse me a moment. There we go. So you should all be able to see my slides now, which is great. And I'm just going to jump straight into it. So welcome everybody. Again, I was just saying it's been a little while since we've all gotten together. So I'm really happy to be here with the Get Ready Queensland team just to have a chat and give a bit of an update on where things are at. And we'll be making sure that these communities of practice come together frequently to keep everyone abreast, you know, as we head towards the interesting part of the year once winter passes us by. Just onto my next slide, and I want to take this opportunity just to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that I'm sitting on today, Turrbal Country, but also on the land that you're all dialing in from, and just pay my warm respects to them and welcome anyone online who is of First Nations descent. We're very happy to have you here. Thank you very much. This is our agenda today, which was attached to the meeting invitation, but just so you know what's coming up, we have a jam-packed session for you. We will touch on the Resilient Australia Awards, which are currently open. We'll talk about grants. We have some new brand guidelines, which I'd love to just comment on, and a new opportunity there for support from here in Brisbane out to all you guys. We'll just briefly touch on Get Ready Week, but things will firm up as the year progresses in that space. And we also will talk about upcoming campaign and the work that we're doing around that. And then, as I mentioned before we started the recording, there is an opportunity for you guys to share any insights or areas of interest that you may wish to do. So we've had a little bit of a change here at Get Ready Queensland recently, a great change in that our team has grown. So most of you will know that Get Ready for quite a long time has just been 2 human beings, but we've been very happy to expand to 4 team members. So I'm delighted today to welcome Sally and Faye. Some of you may recognise Faye from her long tenure at Brisbane City Council, doing community engagement in the disaster management space. So we're absolutely thrilled to have Faye on. Sally comes to us from a very long career at TMR, working in particularly around road safety and making sure that we all drive on the road correctly. So thanks, Sally. Good to have you. And we have Linda as well, who's joined government for the first time. I think she's going to provide a really lovely insight. She comes from a photography background, but has been running her own business for a long time, which also has very valuable and transferable skills as well. So that's the new Get Ready Queensland team. If you do need to contact us, we do recommend that you reach out to us via the generic Get Ready Queensland email address. That's getready@qra.qld.gov.au. That way, no matter where we are in the state or working from, we can certainly get onto your inquiry. So that's the team. Welcome, everybody. So it's that time of year where we have the Resilient Australia Awards to be thinking about. And I really do want to encourage as many local councils as possible to think about what disaster resilient initiatives and activities may be eligible for the awards. We want to see lots of submissions come through. Now, those submissions close on the 5th of June, but I suspect that there will be an extension by a week. So if you haven't started, it's not too late. There is support to get your submission in on time. The lovely people at ADA have staff there waiting to assist you with your applications. And if you need some ideas, here's a list of the entries from last year, including Longreach, who was our winner. Congratulations, Craig. It was awesome. Some really cool projects, and it's such a good opportunity because in disaster management, you know, we're always looking ahead, planning ahead, what for the next disaster. But this is a really nice opportunity for, you know, Queenslanders to just stop and congratulate ourselves and each other on a job well done, because there is some really terrific work that happens in Queensland in disaster resilience, and it's important that we do acknowledge that and take that moment to celebrate our successes while planning for the future. This is the first year that entries have been able to be accepted via video, so you don't have to do a written submission. You can do multiple short videos or one 7-minute video that the judges will review. So that might just help some people in the development of that application. But again, if you are thinking about entering something that you've done, please do reach out to me and I will hook you up with all the assistance that you need. So it's not too late. Get onto that. Any questions before I move on? I actually can't see the team screen, but I'm sure someone will alert me to the fact. Glorious. Well, it's also that time of year where we need to be thinking about our Get Ready Queensland grants. So the packs have gone out to all CEOs, and I did try and let the Get Ready Queensland Council coordinators know. If you haven't received that email, my deepest apologies, but please do reach out if you haven't seen anything yet for your allocation of funding for 2023 and 2024 financial year. I just wanted to take you through a few things that are new this year. We are going to be doing the allocation of funding in particular tranches. So what we've learned from the last few years is that some councils who have already submitted their paperwork have to wait for other councils to complete their submissions in order for them to get the money through the QRA system. So we've put some more tight timelines around when you can submit your funding by. Of course, it is due on the 1st of July for the start of that financial year. But of course, we recognise that that's not always the case. If you do get it done on time, that's great. You'll be in the first tranche. The second tranche will be any submissions between that due date and the 30th of September. So that will be the second batch, and then we'll deal with the third batches after that. So just something to keep in mind, that it's certainly worthwhile putting in your best effort to get your plan of activities and your signed paperwork in to our submissions inbox, so that we can give you your money, particularly well in advance of something like Get Ready Queensland Week, where you may want to spend the money. I'm going to stop sharing the screen briefly now and just share instead the new guidelines. Much of it's the same, but I do just want to point out a few fresh things. So this will be with your CEO letter and your plan of activities template. We've added a few extra details this year around eligible and ineligible items. Again, this year we have the pre-approved activities. So if you do select from that pre-approvals activity list, which I'll try and not make anyone motion sick while I scroll down, they are much the same but last year with just a few edits. And if you select from this, you essentially are self-accrediting yourself, and it doesn't have to go through the assessments process here at QRA. So it's a much faster process for us to then move these through the system. It doesn't mean you have to use these pre-approved activities. You can give us your own ideas. We will then just have to assess it against the eligibility of these guidelines. And I'll just point to the other appendix where we have the specific arrangements for this year. Just a reminder that it's the 90% payment initially, and then upon acquittal, then you get the 10%, the remaining 10%. And all the information is there on who to send your paperwork through. It's worth just having a read. I talk about those tranches in here as well. But if you do have any questions, please come to me. We do have our QRA-led activities again this year. So what that means is if you need a little bit of help, perhaps there's less staff to be able to deliver your Get Ready Queensland package, we are here to provide assistance. Now, if you select a QRA-led activity, what that means is we will do the activity from here. Of course, we will engage with you on that, but we keep the amount of money from your grants here and we pay for it through your grant allocation. That won't come to council. You will get a new PFS, project funding schedule, with the new amount sans the amount that we keep in order to deliver your QRA-led activity. So essentially you're outsourcing and paying us through your grant allocation to either do the paid advertising for you. So that might be radio advertising, it might be billboard, or to purchase those emergency starter kits. You can also purchase your own emergency starter kits via the Get Ready Queensland hub. And that hub is still here, ready and available. If you do not have access to the council hub, please let us know because we will get you access into there. It's just password protected. And in here is where you'll find resources to help you do your local activities, but also to align with our Get Ready Queensland campaigns. And you can see here we have the funding information, so what I've talked to you about today, and also where you can buy those emergency starter kits through our supplier. So that is about it. Let me just make sure I've covered off on all my notes. But again, we just want to make it as simple and as easy as possible for councils to gain access to their grant funding. So also, if you have any feedback about how we do run the grants, please do let me know. I am always willing to receive feedback in the spirit of continuous improvement. Yep, that's great. I'm going to again stop sharing the screen and go back to my slides. Oh no, where did you go? There we go. Any questions about the grants process? Oh, I should probably touch on acquittals actually. Just a reminder that Sally or Faye, can you tell me if you can see that Excel spreadsheet? Awesome. Just a reminder that the way acquittals will run this year, so acquittals for this financial year are due 30th of September. It's also in the guidelines. And I just want to remind you exactly how to undertake that process. You will have this project form that you submitted your plan of activities for this year, and you'll have it beautifully filled out, and we would have said, that's excellent, here's your money. It's the same form for both your submission and your acquittal. So you can see these tabs down the bottom. These are your acquittal tabs. So you'll use the same form, but fill out this section here. So it will pre-fill what you've already had in your plan of activities. If it hasn't, for whatever reason, just copy and paste it over, not a big deal. And you will simply fill out these acquittal tabs in relation to those activities, how much it cost, etc. And you will send that through to the submissions here at QRA, along with your evidence, photos, receipts, general ledger information. If you changed your activities throughout the year, that is okay. We have evidence of that because you've told us about it. So that's great. But what you will do is you will keep the original activities in this acquittal template, but you would select not delivered or variation replaced with another activity. Sorry, that font is very, very small. So there's this activity status, and there's your options. And you would then just create another line for the activity that was delivered and select delivered. So hopefully that makes sense and it's not too complicated. But if you do require help or have questions, please reach out. We are happy to support you with that. Thank you very much. I will return to my slides. Groovy. I should be able to go to the next one. Okay, we also have new brand guidelines, and we have already been working with some councils on new items in relation to those guidelines. Essentially, not much has really changed in terms of how you utilise the Get Ready Queensland naming style on anything that you use Get Ready funding for. We just have guidelines that are a little bit more explicit. So we looked at the guidelines last year, sorry, the previous guidelines this year, and I was like, why is this document 47 pages long? That's crazy. So we've cut it back. I think it's more like 12 pages now with just really clear, practical advice on how we utilise Get Ready Queensland and the Queensland Government crest on any items that you guys are creating for use in public. So it is a requirement to utilise the Get Ready branding when Get Ready grant funding is used, which I'm sure makes a lot of sense. If you do need help with your design work, please again let us know. We have a wonderful graphic designer on staff who is more than willing to assist. And also, if you've done your own designs, please do send them through for us to have a look at, and we can just sense check them against the guidelines for you just to take the guesswork out of it. The other thing that you'll see in the guidelines that is new this year is that we are happy to help create collateral packages for councils. So if you want assistance with us developing co-branded items for you, just to make it really simple and easy for you guys to push content out. So that might be social media tiles, it might be banners. We can put together a package for you, and the package items are listed in the new guidelines. So what we might do is when we finish today's session, we will send the meeting notes around to everybody. And we will also include the new brand guidelines in there for you to peruse and have a look and see if perhaps one of those co-branded collateral packages is right for council. There's no cost. We're doing that because we want to be as helpful as possible. So that's a fun new update for y'all. Get Ready Queensland Week, just letting you know that planning is underway for this year's week. We are looking to, again, both have a launch here in Brisbane as well as a regional launch somewhere else in the state. And we're looking at activities to be able to really shine the light on regional Queensland this year. You know, we're based here in Southeast Queensland, so it's really easy for us to do activities here in Southeast Queensland. But, you know, Get Ready Queensland Week is about all Queenslanders, no matter where you are in the state. So that really is our focus for this year. So it's time for councils to consider if there is anything you guys would like to do. And we would like to help you promote that in any way we can through our channels. You know, sharing is caring. So it's worth having a think about what might be right for your community and how we here at Get Ready Queensland can support you in implementing those activities. So Get Ready Week will launch on the 9th of October this year and run through to the 15th. We look forward to sharing more detailed planning with you soon, and perhaps you guys can share back to us some of the good ideas that you have in your neck of the woods. As you know, Get Ready Week aims to bring media attention to our campaign, which runs for the 6-week period after Get Ready Week. We had really good results from the campaign in 2022. In fact, so good that we are going to rerun the creative elements this year. And we're talking with IGA about that at the moment as well, and see how we can build on it to be even bigger and better than last year. If you haven't seen the results from last year's campaign, when you jump on the Council Hub, you can go to the Community of Practice link and look at the recording from the last Community of Practice where I presented on the outcomes of this campaign. Or if you are interested, just also reach out to me. I'm happy to share. We did independent market research to evaluate the campaign and had really phenomenal results, particularly around driving people towards action, which is what this is all about. So we will be running this campaign again this year. I'm going to pause for questions because I've been talking a lot. And then after that, we're going to hear from Sally about some other campaign work that we're doing at Get Ready Queensland as well. So any questions from the floor?
Kate, just quickly, Sally Mills-Murray here. There's been a question about our suite of resource and what we have in different languages.
That's a really good question, actually. At the moment, this is an area that we are working on in terms of getting our new dangerous weather resources translated. That's not a short-term fix. We do have pre-existing fact sheet resources across hazards in multiple different languages, so that content is available. And then in addition to that, many of the other local councils have done a lot of work in this area, and I'm sure would be really happy to share as well. So it is worth reaching out if you do have questions on that. We can spread the details. Just on that, I do just want to take pause because it reminds me to mention that as the plan of activities come in, we're actually collating the different types of activities different councils are planning to spend their grant funding on. What we're really interested in doing is putting together some community of practice groups where councils who are working on the same types of activities can actually share both across ideas and resources, just in an attempt to try and get more bang for buck. You know, we don't actually provide a whole lot of money. $2 million does not go a long way across 78 local governments. So if exactly like an example like this, if someone's working on translated resources, it just makes good sense for us to be talking about that and finding ways to share across local government boundaries. So if you're interested in that, we're interested in more of that coordination as well. So thanks for the question to remind me to mention that. Much appreciated. Any other questions? Okay, I think we can move on to Sally. Sally, I'm happy to just flip through the slides for you.
Fabulous. Hello, everyone. I've met a few of you already. I've had the pleasure to. It's really wonderful to finally make a community of practice meeting. I usually don't get to come along because I have every second Wednesday off to spend time with my family and do a few things. So it's wonderful to be able to be here today. It's my off week this week. So I just wanted to talk you through the Get Ready Queensland flood risk campaign. So this is a package of work that came out of Cat C and Cat D disaster funding, and it is in response to the Southern Queensland flooding events of 2022. So what we have done, what we were asked to do is put together a campaign to help people manage and understand their flood risk, and then a suite of education and engagement resources to help essentially you guys sort of leverage that in your community and help improve flood risk awareness and management in your own local areas. Next slide, please, Kate. All right. Okay. So what I wanted to kind of talk you through today is what we've done to date in this space, and basically just run you through some of the things we've learned and then what our next steps are. So essentially, we are I'm approaching this through a behavioural science perspective and through a social lens marketing. So social marketing lens. So essentially what we want to be doing is thinking about what a whole lot of evidence says about how people behave and have behaved and what their barriers to behaviour and beliefs are, and then thinking about using those insights to form a campaign that can help us to influence behaviour and awareness at a community level about this really important topic. So we went into this with the question of how might we design an advertising campaign and suite of educational resources to help Queenslanders understand and manage their flood risk. And these are some of the things that we've done. And the lovely Kate's going to... All right. Well, first of all, we have some challenges. I'm sure you're all aware this is a huge topic. Flood risk in general is giant, complex topic. Also complex people. People don't make sense. Behaviour doesn't make sense. Queensland's a really big and diverse place, so thinking about a campaign that talks about such a broad topic to such a broad audience is something that we have to be really strategic and careful about approaching. Also, we know that just contextually, there are housing shortages at the moment and cost of living pressures, which mean that people are perhaps living in places where they wouldn't previously have lived because they don't have as many choices. And then on top of that, in the last few years, we've had the biggest rates of interstate migration that Queensland's had in, I can't remember the stat. I thought it was ever, but someone can correct me on that one. It's significant. We also know that flood mapping availability is different but across LGAs. So we can't really go out with a campaign that says, go and check your flood maps, because it's not quite as simple for everyone. We could do that, to be fair, but it probably wouldn't be as easy and as consistent for us to be talking about that because there's so many variabilities in that space. Also, lastly, the bomb's given us the hot tip. I'm sure they've given you the same hot tip that we're heading into a drought. So going into thinking about a campaign that talks about making people aware of their flood risk in the context of a significant portion of people having recently experienced the trauma of a flood, and then thinking about how we do that potentially rolling out in the context of a drought are some big challenges that we've had to consider in how we've approached this campaign. So, Kate. So our social marketing approach through Get Ready Queensland is a behaviour chain. So we talk about one thing that people can do. We also talk about raising awareness about that, normalising a behaviour, and then creating an environment for that behaviour to be normal, and then offering timely prompts for people to engage in that behaviour when it's relevant. Now, that's a lot to achieve, and it's not something we can achieve through one campaign, but through our whole program of work, we try to look at things through these lenses to be able to make sure that we're building a bigger culture around preparedness in Queensland, and then reinforcing things wherever we can along this behaviour change chain. Kate. All right. So we had a look at we looked at behaviour change literature. We looked at all of the reports around recent flooding events. We looked at all of these market research we could get our hands on about people's behaviour and opinions about flooding and disaster preparedness. And where we landed was we are going to have a campaign and education suite of materials that looks at risk perception. So we are going to start in step one, understand your risk. And we are really wanting to dig down, and we ideally would like to, our big picture kind of goal for this would be to help reframe people's perceptions about what the word flood risk means and what their personal flood risk is. Some of the market research that we read early on that was really compelling was that essentially it's no surprise to many of us to actually to see this, but people limit themselves in their idea of whether or not they're at risk or at not risk purely based on where they live and where their home is. And we'd really like to broaden that and encourage people to think about their disaster risk through the lens of their personal vulnerabilities. So not just vulnerable people, but the vulnerabilities that people have in their life that might make them more susceptible for the impacts of a disaster like a flood. We also want them to think about their flood risk or disaster risk more broadly in the context of where they live, work, play and move. So not just their home, but thinking about what would happen if a severe weather event happened while I was at work. how would I get home, what would happen with the kids, so that bigger picture consideration of risk. Kate, next, please. So disregard the stats on this infographic here because I've taken this out of context, but this is a really, really nice kind of vibe snapshot for kind of the challenge here. I read a piece of research that said it's highly likely that that there's a bit of a gap between people who work in floodplain management's perspective of community risk and the community's perception of their flood risk. And it's our job to consider ways to kind of bridge that gap, and that's what we're looking to do here. So when we talk about flood risk perception, there's a whole lot of other factors at play. It's actually not kind of cut and dry. So we'd love to be able to say, we'll just convince people that they're at risk, and then they will then go and engage in all of these preparation measures. But it's actually not that simple. There's a whole lot of bias and other factors that feed into that. So this is just kind of a bit of an overview of the many factors at play. Kate. So this is what where we're going with it. We want to reframe that perception of flood risk from the idea that it is your home and that a flood happens around your house only, and then move that to much bigger idea. So bringing that back to our behaviour change and thinking about one behaviour, we want to consider building some kind of online tool to help facilitate that, and we want to be looking at ways to encourage people to use a tool that helps them reframe what their disaster risk. It's not about a personal risk assessment. It's about looking at ways to challenge people's perception in a fun way. So the other thing that we did was we had a really good look at how we are already talking about understanding your risk. And when I did a really big deep dive into disaster preparedness programs really across the world, a lot of that first step, understand your risk, is a step that really often gets kind of glazed over, and it's really easy. Go talk to your local council, understand your risk, and we don't always make it as easy for people as we can. That being said, when I did my big deep dive, what I found out is that there's also some local governments who are doing really, really well, and we want to look at that and figure out how we can take on some of those approaches as well. Obviously, this is a really complex area and there's a lot in it. But a big part of this project is also what we have established is thinking about how we talk about risk and how we talk about flooding, because a lot of our consultation with some stakeholders from across government and industry have highlighted is that there's a real gap in flood literacy as well, and there's a lot of technical language that gets used in this space, and that sometimes these understandings don't match up in that same way that risk doesn't match up. So we really want to have a look at our web presence and what we're providing at the Get Ready Queensland web level to be able to give people as much information and help them in any way to understand their flood risk and also just understand flood literacy more broadly. Again, we found that there's actually no shortage of amazing information and resources available across many of your local governments and in the across sectors as well, and we want to look at ways to bring some of those into one place. Kate, what's my next slide? I'm nearly there. So our next steps are, we've come up with an approach and a theme and where we want to be really looking at through this campaign. We have commissioned some market research to talk to people from across Queensland and really dig into how we talk about flood and how we talk about risks, and ask them if the way that we're doing this is, is aligned with their understandings of how we're doing that, and maybe even look at what the best ways are for us to be framing these conversations so that we're connecting with people in a way that is relatable and understandable. We're also building a bit of a knowledge base in the background in terms of building a data set that can connect the messaging we're saying now and then outcomes during or after a disaster. So I'm looking at things like TAMS data and DARMS data to try to connect, if we tell people things here, what are some ways that we can see it afterwards? Although you can't actually make that connection specifically, but trying to link back wherever we can to actual outcomes that might inform even the message here. are looking at a shorter term social media campaign towards the end of the year, which is going to be led out of that market research just to start kind of transitioning people across to talking about this topic. And we're doing a massive review of the website. Essentially, this campaign project has really made us have a good look at the website and how we're talking, and thinking about it through a lens of accessibility as well, to make sure that as many people as possible can be getting these ways and information in ways that's easy to understand. Now, once we've got to a point where we've got some tools, we also want to work with local governments to co-design some engagement and education resources, so that whatever it is that we build in an online space can be leveraged in real life. And that will be something that we will be, in the coming months, starting to put some framework around how we will approach it. So I'm looking forward to talking to you all about that more in the future. This campaign will be in market next year, so we're still a bit of a way off, but there's a lot of work to do between then and now in terms of building the infrastructure, so that once we get messaging out in market about flood risk, and people have somewhere to go back to and really kind of sink their teeth into with all of the tools that they need to help them. So that's my update. I was going to set myself an alarm and I forgot, so I hope I didn't go too far over. If there's any questions, please do. Please ask. Come on, I know you do. Even if you're sitting there thinking it sounds crap, tell me that too. I'd love that. I'd love a bit of critical feedback. So go ahead. Oh, okay, Brendan, what's your...
No, that was good. Look, in particular, intellectual knowledge and definition. There's a real struggle between planning scheme maps and disaster management flood maps. Interestingly, as a bit of fun last week, I actually put into ChatGPT, how would I explain to a 6-year-old the difference between disaster management maps and planning scheme maps on the Fraser Coast? And you'd be surprised with the answer. It was excellent, which we're actually going to use.
Yes, so, we've been doing a little bit of that ourselves, and it is very illuminating, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely. And that's certainly something that the language used on flood maps is something that I have flagged with a few people as another whole package of work that's really worthwhile. But hopefully our market research will be able to kind of highlight some real opportunities to improve across the board. And I think that's been the thing with with this project to date, that it's actually kind of highlighted some bigger picture things that we can do across a number of projects, which is exciting. So,
I think it needs to be dumbed down, because people in planning, they talk planning scheme stuff. People in disaster management talk disaster management stuff. Now, we all know what the differences are internally, but for the punter out on the ground, they just want to know what a height means for them, you know, essentially. And we're trying to do that locally by dumbing that down.
Yep. And look, for what it's worth, this is a problem across so many areas within government as well, where there is this, it's so important for the technical stuff to be there, but it's actually really, really important that people get the information. So it's certainly, we're not alone here, but that doesn't make it any easier, does it? It's really tricky. So I think I'd love to have a look at what you guys are doing and be kept up to date with that, because it's just such useful intel to share.
No worries. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sally. So good. Yeah, we look forward to keeping everyone up to date on the progress of Sally's work. It's been really, really interesting to do that deep dive, and I'm sure it's going to produce really good results. So once we have those campaign concepts in place, we'll certainly swing back around it and let everyone know what we're going to get up to. But now it's time to throw over to you guys. Brendan mentioned ChatGPT. I wonder if anyone else is already using that technology or AI technology in their everyday work. And if you are, perhaps you can let us know how you're using that. At QRA, we we have just put in place a bit of a policy framework around how to use that, but certainly we're not shying away from those new technologies. And here within Get Ready Queensland, we are using chat pretty semi-regularly at the moment to help us with our comms work. So is anyone else out there brave enough to put up their hand and tell us about how they're using those technologies in their work? Chris, you have your hands up.
Yeah, hey there, how you going? Thanks very much for the prezo. So yeah, I've got an admission to make. When we were establishing our dashboard, our new QIT Plus product dashboard for Moreton Bay Regional Council, I was looking at some nice snappy descriptions for the board and what it does and how it delivers it and what the value is of a dashboard. And so I had and this is how I like that Chat GPT tool. You can have like the bones of an idea and you can have an understanding of different subject matter, but then just by typing in an interesting inquiry and adjusting your language slightly, you can then be provided a draft of something which can cover all of your bases. I think you need to go into it with your eyes open though and understand that what you're being provided here is very much driven by your inquiries and the language you use in your inquiry. So it needs to have some common sense and fact checking put behind it, because I don't think everybody's 100% confident that what comes out of it is necessarily legit, because it taps into so many different sources of information, some which could be less than valid.
Absolutely. I wouldn't be asking it for facts at all. I would be inputting the facts and asking it to shape them into a usable product, at least a first draft, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And to remember, of course, that everything that goes on there will probably stay there forever.
Yes.
So making sure that you're being conscious about what you type into those types of services as well.
Indeed.
Not that I'm an IT expert, Chris, but thanks for sharing. Really appreciate it.
No worries.
Has anyone else got their hand up? Yeah, go for it.
Hey, Venkat from Banana Shire Council. Yes, for many aspects, we're using ChatGPT as a starting point to understand a new concept. So I've rolled out extensively to my team. If you have a question, you can ask Google, try asking ChatGPT, because you get one answer, and you can build on it. Even writing for some policy position. This morning, we were working with our fleet team to go through the grey fleet policy. So grey fleet is effectively, if you bring your vehicle to work, what sort of considerations that are required. And I've asked ChatGPT to write a policy for me, which, again, that's not the end product, but that's definitely the starting bare bones of it. ChatGPT is also helpful in translating something. So you type something in English and it'll give you a translation in another language. We haven't used it, but we've tested it in some contexts. Where I am, Billa is home for good 25, 26 nationalities of people. So it's always helpful. So yeah, look, I think I echo the sentiment across the board. It's not the end product, but it certainly can guide you in a right direction to get something started. And oftentimes we burn a lot of energy to get few things started. So it was definitely helping me.
Thank you for that. I didn't realize that, even a first draft or a translation, how useful to get the ball rolling in that space. Thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, I think, someone mentioned writing things simple. I think Australian government have messages in simple English, or which is just like a snappy one sentence messages. with some infographics. So, you know, when it comes to English fluency for people with different cultures, oftentimes they may not understand whole paragraph, but if we could make it simple using one infographic, there's high chance that people will look into it and absorb it. So again, that's my view. Just wanted to put it out there.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And yeah, plain English is absolutely critical, particularly in the work we're doing around, you know, sharing really important messages. Everyone in Queensland should be able to understand what we're trying to say. So glad we have some tools to help get us there.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Also, if you just have some like really weird leftovers in the fridge, like a bunch of parsley, an onion, and some mushrooms, just type those things in and it'll come up with a recipe for you. So that's my hot tip for anyone thinking what to make for dinner tonight. No one else with their hand up?
Look, you don't need ChatGPT for that. That's quite clearly a creamy onion and mushroom pasta. That's just a little bit of white
You're
wine.
right. You're right. Yeah. You don't need AI to tell you that. Okay, well, we have a couple minutes left, so I'm just going to throw it out there. Does anyone have anything else to share, some fun projects that you're working on, some events coming up, anything that you think other jurisdictions may find useful to hear about? Ben Carter, you have your hand up again.
Yeah.
Go for it. You're our super user today.
Look, you know, we're using the Get Ready Queensland disaster preparedness funding this year in a grassroots community engagement aspect with culturally and linguistically diverse people. So what we've done is we've teamed up with an organization called Integrate Queensland. They're based in CQ, servicing different areas, and through their Saturday morning catch-ups with people with different communities, and we have a small little step multicultural program that's going. We're trying to work with, you know, mums and little ones and the families to spread the disaster preparedness messages. So all of these things come together in an event called Flourish. Flourish Billa is a multicultural event. So if you're interested, Google Flourish Billa. And those of you who are across, we had a refugee family that battled to stay in Australia, and there's a lot of media coverage nearly 12 months ago. So they were there in the last Flourish. So that was attracted some national attention. So the Flourish event happens this year again, you know, with a number of people coming in, and there is a disaster preparedness wall in the Flourish event. So the plan from the organizers is those 3 key messages that come from Get Ready Queensland. We wanted to print them on a postcard size. However, leave it blank on the other side where people could write these messages in their languages and display them during the event, but can take it home towards the end of the event.
That sounds fantastic. I've never heard anyone doing a disaster preparedness wall in that sense. That's really a really cool concept. We would love to see how that goes. Yeah,
look, I'm quite willing to share anything and everything in relation to this. What we found is the cohort of people that are in our part of the world. Number one, majority of them, as I said, 1/3 of our population are new residents, whether they're coming from interstate or overseas. And when people come, most likely it is their first overseas interaction. So their understanding of disasters is completely different to, you know, someone who's born and bred, although English may be the second language. So we have an extra layer of complexity, and a number of people we have are on temporary visas. So their interaction with government, albeit any form of government, is bit not friendly, in the sense that they don't want to, they think that they go ask for a help, people will ask for their visa status, something along those lines. So we are working to break those barriers to see, it's okay to ask for help, So in addition to the 3 messages, the coffee catch-ups have 2 extra bits to say disasters happen differently in Australia. So if you see a road closed, that means it's really closed. They're not joking, so you don't go there. And then the second thing is you can really ask for help, from government. So people in uniform are really helpful, whether SES or police or ambulance. So very basic when it comes to messaging, but what we found in our interactions were that's very important for them to know that they can do that too. So.
Wonderful. No, thank you. And I'm sure, your points there really resonated with all the councils working with their called communities in this space. When is your Flourish event on?
On, I think, 18th of June. It's a Sunday.
Oh, it's coming up.
It's coming up. It's coming
Right.
up. It is. Yeah, the 18th of June.
Wonderful.
This Sunday.
Well, we'll obviously be very happy to help share that through our channels. But in the meantime, when we have our next community of practice, perhaps you can let us know how it went and how the wall went and share some photos so we can be inspired.
Yeah, and the local DDMG and the Gladstone area people are also supporting the event by distributing some goodies that we could share and things like that. So it's coming along very nicely.
Great. We love hearing when there's that team effort in a region like that. So it's wonderful. We wish you all the best with it. And thanks so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have some interesting initiatives to share today? Any comments, any questions about what's been presented? Doesn't seem like it, which is perfectly fine. I saw some people came in a bit late, so just a reminder that we will send out meeting notes, but also we have been recording today's session and it will sit on the Council Hub for you to access at any time. So if you were really hoping to hear some of the information around the grants or the new branding guidelines, jump onto that recording and have a listen. But in the meantime, I just want to say thank you for joining us. We'll be in touch about the next session in July, and I look forward to seeing you all then.
Thanks,
Thank you very
Kate.
much.
Thanks for everything.
Thanks, Ian. Cheers.
And just quickly,
Thank you.
send me
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks
Have
all.
a great day.
Cheers.
Feel free to send me unsolicited thoughts on all things flood.
Fill up her inbox. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Ellie. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.